Squeeze Menaught and the Christmas Goblin. The fairy princess, Squeeze Menaught, lives in the mushroom forest with the royal family and all the regular fairies. When Squeeze Menaught is squeezed, she secretes a stinky odor that brings most fairies and mortals near to death due to respiratory failure and vomiting. It is truly awful. Squeeze lives with her brother, Prince Touch-Me-Not, who when touched produces an electric charge that paralyzes the fairy or mortal touching him. The paralysis eventually wears off with no lasting effects. She also lives with her mother, Queen Kiss-Me-Not, who when kissed turns the person kissing her to ice. They are only thawed when placed in the presence of Squeeze-Me-Naught's foul stench. And with her father, King Hug-Me-Not, who is covered with quills that stab anyone who attempts to hug him. The quills cause intense pain, but are otherwise harmless. Now, it was Christmas time in the Mushroom Forest, and the fairies love Christmas. But like almost everywhere, someone would always cause Christmas trouble by moving Christmas decorations, losing or breaking bulbs on Christmas light strings, tangling those same Christmas light strings, and relabeling Christmas gifts so that they end up with the wrong person. The fairies are sure that the mischief is caused by the Christmas Goblin, but the Goblin has never been seen by anyone in the Mushroom Forest, probably because goblins are very sneaky and have special powers that erase the memory of anyone who sees them. Nevertheless, the fairies know the Christmas Goblin exists because they have all been victims of his mischief. This Christmas, the Christmas Goblin is up to more mischief than normal, so Squeeze Menaught decides that she will do something about it. As it turns out, Squeeze Menaught is not affected by goblin magic, and she is able to find the Christmas Goblin. She follows him through the mushroom forest as he spreads Christmas frustration to all the fairies of the land. But eventually, the Christmas Goblin realizes he is being watched, and so he sets a trap to capture Squeeze Menaught. As the Christmas Goblin, whose name is Hank, makes mischief in the Tooth Fairy's cottage, or so Squeeze Menaught believes, she waits quietly at the base of a large speckled mushroom, daydreaming about the wonderful Christmas feast soon to come. Suddenly, Squeeze Menaught realizes that she is being watched, and she starts to run away. But it is too late. A net made from the strongest spider silk and coated in the nectar of a ripened apple descends upon Squeeze Menaught and traps her. The net is too strong for her to break free, and the aroma from the apple nectar slowly puts Squeeze Menaught to sleep. A bit later, Squeeze Menaught awakens. She is in a cold, damp chamber in a rotting stump, and she immediately knows that she must be somewhere beneath the belching swamp, because there is a stench that is even viler than the stench generated when she is squeezed. Squeeze Menaught shakes uncontrollably from fear and cold until she hears the squeaky voices of the Goblin King and the Christmas Goblin discussing what they should do with the fairy princess. "She must be returned to the Royal Mushroom Castle and made to forget she ever saw us," yells the Goblin King, clearly angry that Hank brought her to the swamp. "Our magic does not work on this fairy. The only way to protect our secret existence is to keep her here forever, or to sell her to the desert trolls, never to be seen or heard from again," replies Hank. The Goblin King ponders this for a moment and announces that he must consider all options before making a decision, because he does not want to upset the balance between the goblins and fairies that has existed all these many years. Squeeze Menaught listens to the discussion with no fear, for she is sure that her foul stench will eventually be released and will repulse any goblin and even the meanest desert troll, thus enabling her to escape. Meanwhile, back at the Royal Mushroom Castle, the Menaughts gather for their evening meal. Since Squeeze Menaught is always the first to reach the royal dining table, everyone immediately knows that something is wrong when she misses the meal. "Bring me Fights a Lot. We must organize a search party immediately," bellows King Hug-Me-Not. Fights a Lot, the captain of the castle guard, questions everyone in the castle to see who last saw Princess Squeeze Menaught. "She was tracking the Christmas Goblin near the Tooth Fairy's cottage earlier this afternoon," says Prince Touch-Me-Not. "That's absurd. The Christmas Goblin is not real," chides Queen Kiss-Me-Not. He is only a made-up excuse for all the Christmas problems we suffer each year. Made up or not, I will begin my search at the Tooth Fairy's cottage, exclaims Fairies-a-Lot. Fairies-a-Lot gathers the finest of the castle guard, and they search the area around the Tooth Fairy's cottage. Suddenly, Harvey, the smallest castle guard, yells that he has found a clue. Up the hill from the Tooth Fairy's cottage, Harvey points to a small piece of netting made from spider silk. The castle guards surround the netting, and upon close inspection realize there is a faint remnant of Squeeze Menaught's foul stench lingering in the air. Because of the stench and the torn netting, Fairies-a-Lot realizes that Squeeze Menaught has been abducted. He also realizes that whomever has abducted her is not affected by her foul odor. Otherwise, they would have left her behind to escape the olfactory misery resulting from being in her presence. Fairies-a-Lot calls for the royal hounds to track Squeeze Menaught to wherever her captors have taken her. The royal Menaught family comes along, insisting on helping to find the princess. Back in the belching swamp, the Goblin King decides to sell Squeeze Menaught to the desert trolls, and he and Hank prepare to take Squeeze Menaught to the edge of the belching swamp for the exchange. Hank comes to Squeeze Menaught's holding cell with another apple nectar-soaked spider silk net. As he begins to wrap Squeeze Menaught tightly in the net, just as Squeeze Menaught expected, the repulsive stench rises from her body. She begins to laugh until she realizes that the Christmas Goblin is completely unaffected by the smell. Oblivious to the odor, Hank tells Squeeze Menaught that she should not have followed him and that he is sorry, but she will be sold to the desert trolls because the Goblin's existence must remain a secret. Just as Hank and Squeeze Menaught are leaving the secret chamber, the Goblin King bursts in and exclaims that a horde of fairies led by a vicious fur-curved animal is approaching. The two goblins quickly drag Squeeze Menaught out the back of the stump, only to be surrounded by fairies. True to his name, Fairies-a-Lot flings himself on the Christmas Goblin, but the Christmas Goblin is too fast, and he quickly hog-ties Fairies-a-Lot in rotting cranberry and popcorn Christmas garlands. The Christmas Goblin next attacks Hug-Me-Not, but quickly releases the Fairy King, writhing in pain from Hug-Me-Not's quills. Before he can do anything else, he brushes up against Touch-Me-Not and is instantly paralyzed. The Goblin King decides that a more diplomatic approach is a better idea, and introduces himself to Kiss-Me-Not. As is customary among the goblins, when greeting royalty, the Goblin King kisses Kiss-Me-Not and is frozen solid as a stone. The fairies freeze Squeeze Menaught from her bounds and return to the Mushroom Forest for the greatest Christmas feast of all time. And Hank, the Christmas Goblin, never returns to the Mushroom Forest, and every Christmas thereafter is free from tangled lights, missing decorations, mislabeled gifts, and all other holiday frustration that one might imagine.